And I think we're live right as my phone goes off. I'm going to put that in silent. All right. Are we good to go?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Diary of a Trans Woman is brought to you by all the fine folks over at patreon.com. If you want to learn more about supporting this show, head on over to patreon.com/Diary of a Trans Woman. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is episode 68 of Diary of a Trans Woman. It is a nice, warm summer night out. It is last day of May 31st tonight. We got a fun show coming up. I have a good friend of mine. If you've been a long-time listener of this show, you will remember the first time we had him on. James Elrod, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Abby.
Cool. So we have a rather storied past, and I guess for those who don't know, James was a counselor of mine for 3 years in high school, was it? 2 years, 3 years?
2 or so, 3, yeah.
Something like that. Anyways, I used to go to a Christian summer camp, and James was my counselor. And I had the pleasure of working at the same camp at the same time you were, so we got to kind of hang out in a not so formal setting, which is nice, but you were definitely in another part of it. But yeah, you have left the camp, and that's kind of the last I heard from you for a while, and then I left the camp and I came out as trans, and now you are married. And so I don't want to out you or anything, but
no, actually, see, just shows how long it's been since we've talked, but I'm actually not married anymore.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh no!
No, it's fine. It's fine. Yeah, I just clarify the detail, but yeah, no, it's okay. Things happen, but yeah, no, I am gay. If that's what your audience wants to know, yeah. Yeah. So
this might be the most awkward part of the show I've ever done. So.
Oh no, you're good.
All right.
So yeah. Anyway, but we're obviously in both very different places than we were when we first knew each other. And
yeah, definitely.
I was teaching high school for 9 years, and got my master's. Did my thesis in film, and now I'm going to be starting PhD in screen arts and cultures at University of Michigan in the fall. So
nice.
Yeah.
So what are you hoping to do with that once you get it?
I'd like to continue to teach at the university level. Also, do some writing and publishing.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I know you had I think you reached out to me at one point a little while ago talking about season 2 of Sense8, which has since come out.
Yes.
For anyone who does not know, that is my favorite television series that is currently going, and quite possibly my favorite show of all time, simply just because the portrayals are much more realistic than anything I've seen on screen as far as LGBT or people of color or any kind of intersectionality that no one's gotten it quite as right and realistic, I don't think. And so it's really nice to have that on screen. And so I talked about season 1 a long time ago. But season 2 just came out, which is really good. And then I also reached out to you. I actually wound up talking to one of my coworkers who sits next to me about, I was watching Hidden Figures, and I said that it really got my activist side going and really got me pumped up. And I started talking with the person who works next to me, who is a person of color. She is Black, and we talked about kind of the intersectionality of queer people and Black people, and how it's very hard to have people understand that there are different intersections and different combinations of identities that make life very different for different kinds of people. And so she turned me on to the movie Moonlight, which I saw for the first time, I think last Friday, I think. But I loved it. And so I think we're going to get a chance to chat about that a little bit. What one, I don't know, what's been more powerful to you, James?
They've both been powerful for very different reasons. I mean, obviously they're different. It's different mediums. So Sense8 has the capacity to kind of extend its character development a lot further, but Moonlight won Best Picture for a reason. And, it's really a testament, I think, to how far as a society we have come in the ways that we represent queer identities in media. In a way that audiences seem to be hungry for. And I mean, the success of both the show and the film have kind of shown that audiences are hungry for these kinds of narratives and representation. So they're both powerful for me in very different reasons. I think, the sci-fi fan in me, it's more kind of like what my scholarly work is about, favors Sense8, not in its production quality, but in its themes and in its genre. But Moonlight, I think, as a piece of art, definitely I favor more. So.
For anyone who doesn't know, I can go ahead. Moonlight was released in 2016, and the official IMDb description is a chronicle of the childhood, adolescence, and burgeoning adulthood of a young African-American gay man growing up in a rough neighborhood of Miami. Directed by Barry Jenkins. And the main character is played by... They don't actually have him on the top part of... Ashton Sanders, I believe, is it? Or is that... There are 3 different actors that play Chiron. Is that what it is?
Yeah, over the course of his life.
Yeah. So adolescent Chiron was Ashton Sanders. I'm not seeing... They don't actually have adult Chiron in the IMDb description.
Oh, that's interesting. It's been a few months since I've seen the film, so I'm not, the names aren't at the top of my head, but yeah.
But basically, from what I remember, it starts out depicting just kind of a rough neighborhood, drug deals and whatnot going down, and a little boy about the age of 7 or 8 years old being chased by other kids who are yelling homophobic slurs at him, and he's running away and winds up getting picked up by a man named Juan, who was kind of running the drug ring, I guess. Would that be? He was in charge of the dealers on street corners kind of deal. Yeah. And so we learned that Chiron's mom is addicted to drugs and is kind of a deadbeat mom, which leaves this guy Juan to essentially raise him. And we follow his journey into adolescence, where he is not quite sure. I got a huge sense of just confusion from the character throughout almost the entire film, including his adulthood. But just trying to figure things out. And he meets somebody in his school who they don't really have a relationship. And I feel like a fling is too loose of a term to put on it. I don't know what you'd call it, but...
A tryst.
A tryst?
It's the word that came to mind.
He gets a hand job on the beat.
Yeah.
But basically, that's kind of his first... We get the impression that's the first time he's kind of been in that intimate of a situation. And then he winds up dealing with a lot of physical abuse and harassment and bullying from a bunch of kids, which was very kind of difficult for me to watch because I have similar issues in my past that very much reminded me of. But he winds up fighting back and going to jail, and we see him in his adulthood where he is now the man running the drug dealers on the street corners and being in charge of that. This old friend from high school calls him up after 10 years of not seeing him, and he goes and sees him, and they basically reconnect and chat. And it's a very honest, the acting in it was amazing. I absolutely loved it because I never once felt like something was forced. There was always just a very general sense of like, I'm an adult and I sell drugs and I am a big guy on the scene, and I still don't know how to express this about myself, and I still don't know what to do about it.
Yeah, it's interesting you make the comment about the acting. The acting is stellar in the film, but it's performance, and the film is so much about performance, the performance of race and class, and also of gender in many ways, and about these cycles. The main character learns to perform this kind of like hypermasculinity from this older male mentor. He's kind of like missing a male figure in the home, but he gravitates to this guy because this guy is ultimately the only one who kind of accepts his identity. Him and his girlfriend, played by Janelle.
Janelle Monáe.
Yeah. And so he finds this kind of safe space there, but ironically, he also kind of can't allow him to kind of he can't allow himself to kind of break out of that safety. And it's interesting about how these roles are kind of like thrust upon the characters. There's a moment where even his mentor's talking about, like, as a child, how he kind of had an identity thrust upon him, blue and kind of like chasing the moonlight. And the whole film kind of like follows that motif. And it's really not until the end that there's kind of some hope that maybe these performances will drop and that real intimacy and vulnerability will emerge.
Well, even then, and I guess we should warn, like, we're going to get into heavy spoilers like we already have, but whoops. Juan, the kind of the parental father figure in Chiron.
Yeah. Sharon.
Okay. Sure. Mahershala Ali plays Juan, who is an actor I see him popping up in so many different things lately, and I absolutely love his acting and his body at the same time. Very attractive man, but also incredibly compelling in all the roles I've seen him in. But I really would have loved to have seen the interaction between Chiron and Juan play out a little bit, because the only thing that we really see about Chiron's sexual orientation being addressed is kind of towards the end of his childhood scenes. He asks, "What's a faggot?" And Juan replies, like, it's a word used to make gay people feel bad. And he says, "Well, am I a faggot?" And he says, "No, you can be gay, but you're not a faggot." And so it seems to be something that was not condemned in that in that family, in that familial structure, at least. But I really would have liked to see that kind of be fleshed out a little bit more.
Yeah, and you call it the family structure, but they aren't married in any legal sense, and they're also, everything really kind of about their lifestyle is socially deviant, I think, to the dominant society. And it's interesting, though, that then that's another way that they kind of become socially deviant in the way, in their kind of, in that community, the radical acceptance that they have toward homosexuality, I think.
But yeah, and we learned later on that Juan actually died. Do they ever say how he died?
Oh, I think it was something, a heart condition, related to a heart condition, I think.
Oh, okay. Because I heard it was addressed, but I never picked it up during my viewing of it. So yeah, and then one of the things that kind of bugged me, the ending to it was so abrupt.
Yeah.
It was such an abrupt ending to the movie because basically we see this incredibly over masculinized, I don't want to call him a drug lord. I feel like that's too big of a title for him, but he's definitely more than a drug dealer. But this guy who is part of this, um, who's been selling drugs all his life after he left school, meeting up with this guy who he had gotten a hand job from on the beach in secret, and saying to him, basically, what do you say? You're the only man who's ever touched me, and no one has really touched me since.
Yeah.
And that
But
was just
I love the double entendre of that. The touch, you know, physically, like touching him in a sexual way, but also like touching him in a way that allowed him to feel a romantic attraction for somebody
yeah,
else.
yeah. Because I didn't see that as him saying like I'm still a virgin essentially, but I definitely saw that as like I have not felt comfortable around anybody like I was with you
Yeah.
on.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have all of this build up to this man admitting to himself that he feels something for other men, and he doesn't even in the end come out and say that he's gay. He just says like I feel an attraction to you, and that was just very powerful to me how it ended on that note.
Yeah, you know, you have this hope that he's going to stay the night with
Mm-hmm.
him at the end, and the two encounters that they have both take place at night. You know, I mean, the title of the film being kind of pertinent there in the moonlight. So you have this hope that he'll stay the night, and that this relationship will progress, and that it will go forward into the daylight, where they can kind of be honestly themselves, not just to each other, but to the society around them.
Mm-hmm. But at the same time, the other guy is married and has a kid. So
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
it's
just
messy.
yeah, definitely. There's definitely a lot more story to be told, but it's so sometimes the most drastic cliffhangers are also the most beautiful ones.
Yeah, ambivalent endings, ambiguous endings too, are generally make for powerful cinema. Um, and you know, in shows, you don't in television series, you don't necessarily get that. Like in Sense8, you just get a lot of like cliffhangers and
Mhm.
cliffhangers and cliffhangers.
There's always going to be another
Things
episode.
open ended, but it's
Yeah.
it's still in its process of continuation, and for the time being, no end in sight. I don't even think that the writers or producers of the show have necessarily an end in sight at this point.
Yeah. It might be a loose outline, but
Yeah.
just depends on how long the network renews it before they get to the ending of it.
Yeah.
Which is why I like TV shows, because I can just zone out and immerse myself completely. But there is certainly a different form of art in film as opposed to television.
Yeah. I find it very interesting too that you know, in film with Moonlight, they didn't necessarily have to market themselves in any way, like as a gay film or a gay interest film. And in film, it hasn't necessarily. They've emerged, I think, beyond that. Like the kind of niche genre of LGBT films has kind of emerged beyond that. In television, it's still very interesting that things do kind of get niched in that way.
This is a gay TV show.
Yeah, or a gay station, even
Sure.
on cable television. But you know, you go into Netflix, and if Sense8 pops up as a recommendation, I mean, they've got the letters of the show's title in like rainbow colors at this point.
Yeah.
Like, it's heavily marketing itself as a gay-friendly, gay-centered,
Mm-hmm.
queer-centered television show.
Which is ironic because only two of the main characters are queer.
Yeah, yeah. And yet one of the things, this is kind of a segue, is we're switching maybe to Sense8 a little more, but
beautiful segue. I didn't want to point it out. This is one of the most beautiful segues I've seen. So good job.
but Sense8, so the Wachowski sisters,
Mm-hmm.
who um, their first breakout hit was The Matrix,
Yeah.
obviously, and then the next kind of big notable work was Cloud Atlas,
Yep.
the film, and then Sense8 kind of emerged as this like television series made through
Gloss
Netflix.
over Jupiter Rising.
Oh.
Or whatever it is.
Yeah. So anyway, it's interesting because they, especially in Cloud Atlas and Sense8, they do not shy away from getting political, like very political, tangentially political too, where characters will just have discussions about things that are not at all relevant to the plot, but are thematically relevant in the way that the show is just like overtly progressive in every aspect. And
Like, what's an example of a conversation like that?
What's that?
What pops to your mind when you think of a conversation that happened?
Oh, I think the conversation where Nomi and Amanita are at with her biological mother and her 3 fathers.
Oh, yes, I love that.
And they are talking about second wave feminism and things like that. Like it's a tangent, and it's relevant in the terms of like the show is feminist, very feminist.
Oh, yeah.
And that it pertains to that, but it has nothing to do with the immediate plot at hand, which is about trying to find what Whispers and BPO are up to, and things like that.
Like it's just a bridge that doesn't need to be there, but it adds to the majesty of the tree. I personally loved that scene because it's not often that you see poly groups acknowledged in life through similar film. And so when they say like, yeah, it's Amanita's mom and 3 dads, and they don't know who the biological father is, and nobody cares. I think I love that because I am in a poly relationship right now. I am part of a very familial structure with my 2 partners and their spouses, and the relationship that their spouses have together. And so it was very nice to see that acknowledged, and to be like, this is an okay thing. This is a family structure that can be healthy.
Yeah. And the show knows its audience. I mean, they know that the people gravitating to it, the way that they market themselves, are going to be more progressive leaning and radical thinking. And the show throws these nuggets of like positive representation out there as a way of like affirming and showing solidarity, I think, because especially, it's not an accident that the show in its 2nd season kind of took this up several notches because of the political climate that we're living in. It's kind of a way of showing this like very strong sense of support and community that we need, to know that we're not alone, and that we're in this together more than ever.
And there was a lot more I think season 1 was very much focused on character development. In fact, that's one of the reasons why. That's the main reason why I was so drawn to it. The show's plot is not the most compelling thing in the world by a long shot, but the character development, in my opinion, is what makes it.
The plot is just downright confusing. Like, I would have to go back, and it was the same in The Matrix. If you remember, like, I remember the first time I saw The Matrix or Cloud Atlas, where like I had no idea what was going on until the film was over, and then I was like, well, I need to go back and watch that again and again and again. Sense8 is kind of the same way, that it's just it becomes so complex, and our, I guess, interpretations of who's the good guys or good girls and the bad changes, quite often. And the show changes a lot too in its style and tone in season 2. Here's something worth mentioning, because it was the Wachowski sisters in the 1st season, and now it's just one.
Oh,
at the helm. So
Lily dropped out.
My take is that they're not reining each other in anymore. So it's interesting. But you talk about character development, and all of their works are very much about this notion of kinship. These non-biological ties that have a way of becoming more closer than family, and like replace that as kind of the nuclear structure of society that kind of supports and fosters development. And in season 1, we kind of saw that like the collective, the cluster, as they call themselves, kind of they bond, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And get to know each other and get to know their strengths and each other's strengths. And now we're seeing kind of in season 2 these identities that were normalized from the get-go. I mean, nobody in the cluster has any issue with anybody else's identity. These identities become more normalized, accepted, embraced, and I think utilized in season 2.
Very much so. Do you think, I mean, this is probably diving a little bit deep into kind of the theory behind the show, but do you think that's because they are linked and inherently understand one another, or simply because they happen to be very accepting people?
I think that I think that the show makes this point that they're, I mean, in season 2, we found out they are another species. Like, they are sensoriums that are like this other divergent, species that separated from Homo sapiens a long time ago, and that there's something, there is something more empathetic about them. The empathy that they are able to even show non-sensoriums, goes beyond. I don't know. They create a binary kind of between the two species that they are going to eventually, I'm sure, deconstruct. But right now, it almost seems to be like it's us versus the humans, kind of in a way.
Kind of is, but I mean, I don't know. That gets into. There's going to have to be more show for that to be figured.
Yes.
But, what do you think about it's Toby Onwumere, the new Capheus?
Oh, I mean, I think that he stepped into the role very nicely. I mean, people who are purists or maybe had a special affinity for the previous actor would you be disappointed, but I think that it was a fairly seamless transition. I mean, I know that there was a lot of like tension between the previous actor and the writers of the show and
Emil.
But I think that I mean, it was handled with grace. I think that it was just like, we have personal artistic differences. They split and we got a new person in the role.
Yeah. I know it's been like kind of shot down a few times, but I don't know. The rumor went around that there were some transphobic remarks that were being said at a read through, and that's why he got the boot. They've said like, nope, that's not the issue, but we're not going to say anything else on it. And that's fine. Regardless of what the issue is, I feel like this new character, this new actor, Toby, has a lot more chemistry with the rest of the actors and actresses.
Yeah. Yes.
He's a personality.
It's interesting. Yeah. Yeah. And when he's developing more as a character in the first season, they didn't really allow his character to go that far. Like he kind of wrestled with his own conscience, but we did not see him get to express sexuality at all, which is something that, aside from in like the group orgy scenes that they love in Sense8, we didn't really get to see him express sexuality in any way. Now, although there was a scene where he was like masturbating in his bus, but
wait. I thought he was just what?
In season 1?
Yeah, I didn't think that's what he was doing. I thought he was watching a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie and just like, why?
I thought he was masturbating to that movie. But okay.
I thought it was just like, I orgasmed. Why did I just orgasm?
Like, no, I'd have to go back and watch it, but I'm pretty sure that's what I saw. But, yeah, he's allowed to kind of possess some agency. I mean, we see all of the characters doing this though more.
Yeah.
What I find so interesting, and to be kind of also the central focus of this season, is that the balance that these characters have to achieve and attain between their personal lives and the struggles that they share as a cluster. For example, where Leto is going in for an audition, like his like dream audition.
Oh yeah.
That his friend Danny gets him, and he has to help Sun,
Yeah. Make a
in
side.
her endeavor to make the drink. And so we see like this tension there. Wolfgang too, especially, is like very reticent and reluctant to kind of get involved in the group or to let them get involved in his life. His boundaries seem to be pretty far out. But it's not just that. We also see between the individuals and their communities and nations, when Capheus, for example, like has to figure out if he's going to run for president, and it's like challenging that guy who's like hoarding the water, or when Kala has to figure out if she's going to like approach her husband and do what's in the best interest for like people around the world and in India. And so it's really interesting that it's like showing how like certain dreams, like, I mean, Leto talked about the great dream of his life was to be an actor, and he felt that had been snatched away because he had been outed, and that dream was like dead, and now he's like has this chance to get it back, and he has to like potentially threaten that or relinquish that, or
make a drink
in order to help. Right, in order to help somebody. And I think that's so true to life, that people have to compromise or sometimes even kill their dreams in order to do what's best for the world and the people they care about.
Well, I think especially in queer culture as well, like I had to give up a lot because I'm not going to be a high school science teacher because I'm trans, and I had to make a choice there. I think that happens. I think that's just a part of being alive, is making choices that are better for making a choice that's better for yourself, or a choice that is beneficial to, other people in your life, or people you don't know in your life even.
Yeah. Because there's, I don't know, it's a battle of philosophy. It really is, between kind of being altruistic and being selfish, and what is of more value, and the different characters are at different places in their life about that, also about trusting the law versus like taking justice into your own hands. We see that really with Sun and her brother. It's very interesting. These characters are so diverse, not just in their race and gender and nationality and language and sexuality, but that they are diverse in their worldviews, that in part have been created, I think, by those social identities, but are diverse in like their political and philosophical outlooks.
Religious as well.
Issues. Yeah. So
that's, yeah. I don't know. I'm very excited to see what happens next, and it is going to kill me if this show gets, or it's going to be very, very hard for me if this show does not get renewed until the plot comes to completion. And that's something where, I remember after season 1, that was very much something that was on the fence, and now it is very much something that is on the fence here too. And so I'm wondering how long this.
The thing is that Netflix is so private about their viewing data and the algorithms they use, and how they determine like how popular a show is and all of that. And I think that they have enough viewership with Sense8. I think that it's popular enough and the word is being spread enough that, like, because I know I'm doing all kinds of advocacy and marketing for the show, for free in my own personal life. It's making the rounds, and I think that it will continue to grow. The beauty of it is, the beauty of the age that we live in is that you don't have to like, as long as you have access to a Netflix account and the internet, you can view it whenever you want.
True.
And as often as you want. And I think that, the show will do very well. We're seeing this spike of sci-fi in general. This is, again, the work that I'm interested in, but Westworld, the OA, Black Mirror, Stranger Things, all these like breakout hits. And I think Sense8 is being, counted among them, and explores a lot of our anxieties, because really, we talk about this interconnectivity and kinship, and in the ways that we are already linked. I mean, what Nomi does and Amanita and their friend, what's his name, Bug or something like that. But yeah, that they can hack in anything. You know, privacy is nothing, and it's kind of the same for the cluster. They don't have privacy, and this is the age that we live in, where we all are virtually connected in a way that we've never been before in history, and it is turning us into this almost new species of being.
Kind of is, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the thing, I mean, one of the big reasons why the show speaks to me so much is that so much of what Nomi goes through, the Nomi being the trans woman who is in the show, played by Jimmy Clayton. The stuff that her character goes through is so similar to what I have gone through. I remember it was either in the first or second episode of just the first season. Nomi is hospitalized, and the mother comes in, continually referring to her by her dead name, saying, "Why were you riding a motorcycle? Do you know how many people die on those things every year?" I have heard my mother say the exact same things. I'm pretty sure they were wiretapping my house when they were writing the script, because that is exactly what has happened to me. And later on in the series, when Nomi is talking to Leto about the time when she was a kid in school and was very much abused in the boys' locker room growing up, that was very, very close to what I had gone through in a locker room in high school. And now we find out in season 2 that the mom's name is Janet. My mom's name's Janet.
Oh.
So it really speaks to me. And I mean, obviously, I'm going to probably relate most to the trans character. But I'd be curious to know, like, does somebody who has, I don't know, a background similar to other characters feel the same way? I mean, does Leto scream to you the same way that Nomi screams to me?
You know, it's really interesting. Leto's character, I absolutely love his character. I think he's both hilarious and has the very, a good soul.
Very top, though.
He's very what?
Very over the top.
Well, yes, he's dramatic because he's an actor. But not saying all actors are dramatic, but he's got that.
He has a special brand of dramatic, I think.
Flair for emotionality. But what I find to be very interesting, so obviously we still live in a very transphobic world, and we also live in a very homophobic world. But it's very interesting that how they portray Mexico as a nation. I mean, there is like this machismo that's part of the culture, but they legalized gay marriage before the United States did, and it's just kind of it's interesting how they almost seem to make it like too black and white in terms of like how people kind of react to it, and how his career is just killed because of his sexuality. I don't know if I necessarily buy into that, and I could be corrected, and I would if I can see like,
because I would wonder
personal testimonies or data, but
a similar thing that happened if Leto was American.
Yeah, no, and that totally would not happen if he were an American actor, and I don't know if it would happen if it to a Mexican actor. I don't know. That's not something I can be an expert on. I'm always bothered by how they kind of seem to make the struggle that he faces more antagonistic to him than it should be, or actually would be in his case.
Do you think it is mostly the setting that would contribute to the I mean, if they change the setting, would it make it more believable? Or
maybe I think maybe if they had it set in a country where gay marriage wasn't legal or something like that. I mean, that's not necessarily a good read on the barometer as to whether it's socially accepted, but it's still like, it just doesn't. I don't know. I would need to know more about.
Yeah, I
the
think it's
film industry or media industry and the way that they um, mediate sexuality of their talent, of their actors in Mexico. So
yeah. I think it definitely does portray Mexico poorly in regards to. I mean, this is how the entire country views homosexuality.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
that is something that probably isn't the best outcome of this. I don't think that's something that really needed to be said about, or
Mhm.
we don't need to think that about Mexico. However, showing that, you know what, yeah, you face a lot of issues when you come out as queer or trans or gay or that kind of stuff.
Right,
There's a lot of stuff you got to tackle because of that.
right.
Uh,
Yeah,
I think was very important, and I'm not sure how easy it would be to portray that.
yeah.
Especially
And
like,
t- everybody has their own struggles, right? And so like I don't want to point out to say because from my subjective standpoint, like what Nomi has gone through is way worse than what Leto has, and that and also like the realism of it. Like I believe what she has gone through more than what he has, but they they all have their own struggles, and so his suffering is still very palpable and real, in the sense that he feels like his career is over because of who he is and the choice that he made to like come out and embrace it, admit it, accept it because of the people that he loves.
yeah, definitely.
So I have a question for you. What do you think about this? Why all of the characters, the actors speak in English instead of the languages that they would be speaking, and then just have subtitles?
um I know for me, a movie with subtitles is a lot harder for me to follow. I'm someone who
Yeah,
I'm very fidgety.
yeah,
I like to do multiple things at once. I
yeah,
can't sit down and watch a movie and just watch a movie.
right.
And so it's very, very hard for me to. I was looking and I tried watching Handmaid while I was working yesterday, and that's it's in some kind of foreign language. I wasn't sure which one it was, but as soon as I saw it with subtitles, like I can't do this.
Mm,
I think that it would definitely lower the appeal of the show. And I
right.
imagine if you go to, I mean, if you were watching in Germany, the entire, I mean, you're going to understand. Everyone's going to be speaking Wolfgang's language.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it was a capitalist decision to kind of like knowing that if they're going to want to attract and retain an audience, like
Mhm.
it would be very hard for them to have all of the characters
Yeah.
speaking differently. But issues of the political implications that kind of has, where like English is the dominant language because like it's just pandering or catering to like the English speaking audience instead of like representing things accurately. I think that Cloud Atlas had some issues kind of similar to that, where they had characters playing other races,
Mm.
like just making them up in different prosthetics and having them speak different accents and things like that. And people could take a lot of issues with that.
Yeah.
But one of the things that their works, the Wachowski siblings' works, always seem to be so adamant about is expressing this kind of like, even though we as societies construct all of these us versus them binaries that are so damaging, it ultimately is all us. Like we are all in this together,
Yeah. Definitely.
Um,
And I mean,
and
I think certainly easier to believe that everyone, like, because you're watching this and the people watching this predominantly speak English. I'm not sure if they've dubbed it into other language. They may have. Um, but I'm watching it and I speak English and I can very easily understand that, yeah, the English speaking characters are going to understand German, Icelandic, would be Swahili or the other languages, Korean, as English. And I think that's a lot more believable than, say, how Star Trek handled it. Because, I mean, all these different species speak different languages, and you just say, oh, it's this mysterious thing we have implanted in our ears, and that's it.
yeah, um, Yeah, I mean it's just a marketing choice, economic choice to do that.
Mhm.
But it yeah, most yeah. So anyway, I'm eager to see where they go in season 3.
What are you? I mean, what are you eager to see?
Um,
Plotline or character?
well, before I really speak to that, I've only watched the second season once, whereas I watched the first season at least twice. And I think that you pick up on a lot more. You retain a lot more after it because, like I said, the plot is very complex and confusing, especially as they kind of like are going into the past more,
Mhm.
to like this kind of numinous territory where, or murky territory, I should say, about like the origins of BPO and experimentations on sensates and things like that. And um, I'm eager to see how they kind of bring this to a larger political scale because we're starting to see more clusters. In the
Yeah.
first season, we only saw one, and we're starting to see these more clusters that are interacting with each other. And then I'm waiting for this to kind of come to the larger like public attention, because humans at large seem to be oblivious to the fact that these um, sensoriums exist among
Mhm.
them. And I'm waiting for that to kind of become public in this issue. That was kind of raised ethical issue about, do human rights extend to non-humans?
Ooh.
Which of
Yeah.
course, yes, they do. But like, I mean, that's how any of us would answer it. But I don't know if the humans in the show, in that kind of like diegetic reality, would accept them as human. You know?
Well, I think there certainly would be people in. I mean, if you ask that to people today out in the real world, of course everyone would say yes. Say this is a reality. Like, do these
Yeah.
people get the same rights? I think a lot of people would certainly say yes. However, once those rights were given to them, I'm sure I would guess that a lot of people would come out of the woodwork and say, nope,
Yeah.
this is not. And I think that especially has reflections in the real world with the election. You
Yeah.
see a lot of terrible people coming out of the woodwork with the current
True.
administration.
True. And it's kind of, the experiences that the sensates are going through is just then another kind of placement holder on their like social identity, how that would be ascribed. And I think that it's analogous to like all of the ways that people can be different from the quote unquote norm. And so it's similar to what they did in X-Men, for example, the X-Men comics and the X-Men films, where like the mutants are kind of like, they're the other, and they're feared because they're of their otherness. And I think that I feel like that's the direction the show will go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that we'll see that there are humans on both sides of like, let's support them and be their allies, and then those that will kind of.
Yeah, I'd be I mean, with the storytelling abilities of the Wachowskis and specifically Lana Wachowski, from what you've done in Sense8 so far, I'm very excited to see what that kind of brings to the table. So
yeah.
But I think, I don't know, anything else you wanted to tackle?
No, I think there's a good conversation. I mean, I do apologize. This wasn't like I didn't brush up a ton on my knowledge of either of these, or go back and rewatch them before this.
I still haven't watched the entire second season in the correct order. I've seen it, but my episodes got mixed up out of order. So I actually saw the second episode first and the finale 3 episodes before the end.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was great. Still loved it, and I'm gonna go back and watch it. I'm sure I'm gonna watch it just as much. I think I started watching it with my partners for my 4th time around.
Mm-hmm.
And the Christmas special is always a great way to waste 2 hours. But yeah, I'm real excited for what's to come, and I'm excited to get you back on the show to talk about season 3. So
yeah, I said I'd be moving nearer to you in August, so I'll actually be able to maybe be on the couch next to you.
I'd have to get it. Everyone says like, oh yeah, I'll come over to your place and we can record at the show. I was like, no,
you have to get another mic.
I only have one microphone. It
Yeah.
works best when you're in other places. Right.
Okay.
I'll work something out.
All right.
But I think that just about wraps it up, though. Any questions, comments, or concerns, shoot an email over to diaryofatranswoman@gmail.com. I'm on Twitter. The show is at transwoman, at Diary of a Trans Woman, and I am at Abby Geek. I'm also getting very tongue-tied, so it's time for me to go to bed. But James, you on Twitter? Or where can people find you?
Probably the best way is just email. It's jamesmelrod@gmail.com.
Cool. If you want to support the show, 5-star reviews on any kind of app or podcast service that you use is going to do great things for getting the show into the hands of new people. If you really want to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/Diary of a Trans Woman. We are sitting pretty right now. Just about $20 away from getting sticker packs. I'm super pumped about doing that. So Diary of a Trans Woman on Patreon. That's where you're going to want to go for that. Music for the show is provided by Same Sex Mary. Check out more of their work at samesexmary.bandcamp.com. Artwork provided by Taylor Elaine Straw. TaylorElainePhoto.com is where you're going to want to go for that. Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you so much, James, for coming on. Have a good one.
Thank you for having me. Thanks.